Hey Vikings Nation, what's going on? Strap in, because today's Minnesota Vikings news is loaded with tension, rumors, and big decisions that could reshape the NFC North faster than you think. The division is already a battlefield, and even after finishing last, the Vikings showed real fight, going 4-2 inside the NFC North. That included a shocking sweep of the Detroit Lions, a team that suddenly looks far from stable. But here's the teaser that should grab your attention right now. Detroit might be reloading its offense in a way that could make life a whole lot harder for the Minnesota Vikings next season. Let's start with Detroit, because the Lions are quietly going through a major offensive reset that most fans aren't fully talking about yet. After losing former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, Detroit tried to patch things together, but the results clearly weren't good enough. That experiment ended quickly, with John Morton out as offensive coordinator. Now comes the part Vikings fans need to pay attention to, because Detroit isn't thinking small with their next move. Reports surfaced that the Lions have explored high-profile options for their offensive coordinator vacancy, including reaching out to Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. Now, let's be clear and keep this accurate. Mike McDaniel is still the Dolphins head coach, and there is no confirmed move or agreement in place. This is best viewed as exploratory interest, not a done deal. Still, even the idea should set off alarms across the NFC North, especially for the Minnesota Vikings. McDaniel's offensive regime is no joke, and Vikings fans know this league rewards elite offensive minds. When he took over in Miami, the Dolphins jumped from 22nd in scoring to 11th in his first year, then exploded to a top 2 scoring offense the following season. That turnaround wasn't luck. It was scheme, creativity, and maximizing speed and spacing at an elite level. And yes, that included historic moments like the jaw-dropping 70-point offensive performance that shook the entire NFL. Before Miami, McDaniel was widely considered one of the masterminds behind the San Francisco 49ers' dominant rushing attack. That system helped fuel Super Bowl runs and deep playoff pushes, built on motion, misdirection, and brutal efficiency. So imagine that kind of mind paired with Detroit's already loaded offensive roster. That's why this rumor matters to the Vikings. Detroit already finished near the top of the league in scoring again, even with head coach Dan Campbell stepping in to call plays mid-season. That means the Lions' offense is already dangerous, even without an elite coordinator fully running the system. If Detroit lands a high-end offensive architect, the NFC North arms race officially kicks into overdrive. And that's exactly why Minnesota can't afford to stand still. While Detroit looks outward, the Minnesota Vikings are dealing with serious internal coaching pressure of their own. Defensive coordinator Brian Flores has become one of the hottest head coaching candidates in the entire NFL. His aggressive, adaptable defense transformed Minnesota's identity, especially late in games. If Flores leaves, it wouldn't just be a loss, it would be a seismic shift for the Vikings defense. One name immediately connected to a potential replacement is passing game coordinator Durant Jones. Jones is highly respected inside the building and is one of the few remaining coaches carried over from the Mike Zimmer era. Continuity matters, especially on defense, and Jones knows the personnel, the culture, and the system better than most. But here's the problem. Other teams know that too. The New York Jets have formally requested an interview with Durant Jones. On top of that, Jones is expected to speak with the Dallas Cowboys about their defensive coordinator position. That puts the Vikings in a dangerous spot because losing Flores and Jones at the same time would rip out the brain trust of this defense. Dallas, in particular, would likely prefer Brian Flores if he's available. But if Flores accepts a head coaching job elsewhere, the Cowboys appear ready to pivot directly to Jones. For Minnesota, that's a nightmare scenario. The defense Flores built is complex, aggressive, and highly tailored to the roster. Losing both leaders would almost certainly force the Vikings to look outside the organization. And that means a new system, new terminology, and a transition period the Vikings can't really afford. While the defense faces uncertainty, the offense isn't free from questions either. The Minnesota Vikings struggled to fully prepare their young quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy and Max Brosmer, to run the offense at a high level. Yes, development takes time, but behind the scenes there were deeper issues. One of the most important voices in that process was assistant coach Grant Udinski. Udinski was responsible for translating Kevin O'Connell's offensive vision into weekly execution. But he left Minnesota to become offensive coordinator in Jacksonville under Liam Cohen. According to reporting from The Athletic, there was early season remorse within the Vikings organization about letting Udinski walk. One team source even admitted, "We should have done everything we could to keep him." That says a lot. Losing Udinski made the transition harder than expected, especially for a young quarterback room still learning NFL defenses. Now Kevin O'Connell faces a critical moment. He'll need to reassess how much responsibility he delegates and how he retains top assistant talent moving forward. Because in today's NFL, continuity isn't just nice, it's essential. So when you zoom out and connect all the dots, the picture becomes clear. Detroit may be upgrading offensively. Minnesota could be losing key defensive leaders. And the Vikings are still refining their offensive development pipeline. That's why this offseason could define the next era of Minnesota Vikings football. So let me ask you, Vikings fans, should Minnesota fight to keep continuity at all costs? Or is it time for bold changes to keep pace in the NFC North? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation matters. If you love Minnesota Vikings news, if you want real analysis, real emotion, and real passion, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with every Vikings fan you know. Skol, and I'll see you in the next one. And before we wrap everything up, there's another layer to this story that Vikings fans cannot ignore. The NFL is no longer just about star players on the field. It's about who's designing the plays, who's developing talent, and who's staying one step ahead schematically. Coaching turnover can change a franchise's direction overnight. That's why this moment feels so critical for the Minnesota Vikings, especially with the NFC North evolving fast. Look around the division and you see a clear trend emerging. Detroit is aggressively searching for offensive innovation. Green Bay continues to bet heavily on development and continuity. Chicago is reshaping its identity with youth and flexibility. Meanwhile, the Vikings are standing at a crossroads, balancing stability against opportunity. This isn't panic, but it is pressure. The front office knows that small mistakes in January can become massive problems by September. If Brian Flores leaves, Minnesota must decide quickly whether to promote from within or reset defensively. Promoting internally preserves language and structure, but it may limit adaptability. Going outside brings fresh ideas, but risks growing pains. Either way, the margin for error is razor thin. And let's not forget the quarterback timeline. J.J. McCarthy represents the future, but futures don't develop themselves. Coaching stability, clear communication, and trust in the system all matter. The loss of Grant Udinski exposed just how fragile that developmental chain can be. Kevin O'Connell now carries even more responsibility. He must not only design the offense, but also protect the infrastructure around it. That means identifying assistant coaches who aren't just smart, but loyal, adaptable, and committed long-term. Because the best teams don't just draft well, they build ecosystems. The Vikings are close, but close isn't enough in this division. Detroit is pushing. Green Bay is patient. Chicago is unpredictable. Minnesota must be decisive. This offseason will quietly shape the next 3 to 5 years of Vikings football. And fans will feel the effects long before the standings reflect them. So here's the real question, Vikings Nation. Do you believe this coaching staff, as currently built, can survive the pressure and evolve fast enough? Or do the Minnesota Vikings need bold, uncomfortable changes to stay competitive in the NFC North? Let me know what you think in the comments. Your voice matters here. If you want daily Minnesota Vikings news, honest breakdowns, and passionate conversations like this one, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other Vikings fans. Skol, stay loud, and we'll keep riding this journey together.